First thing I wanted to mention, we have a live Telegram channel that we'd love for you to join. Basically, it's like a group chat of you and like 80 of your best friends who are just love God and creativity. And yeah, we're in there every day just talking about creativity, what's inspiring us, asking for advice. It's been really fun, and we have big things planned for it. So join it. I'll drop a link to join it here in the chat in a second, and we'd love to see you on there. But today, super excited to have our good friend Karla with us, and just to have this conversation around marketing. What is marketing? What is good marketing? What is bad marketing? And yeah, so really excited. Thanks you guys for being on. Excited to see some familiar faces. And Joe, I'll let you take it away. Introduce Karla. You're muted, bro. Classic,
dude. Just smiling and talking. Yeah, guys, welcome. Karla, welcome, Karla, to their calls. I'm glad you got to make it. And she's a really busy marketer and creative director and freelancer, so it was hard to get on this call. I had to pay.
Wait, that's actually real though.
Yeah.
She also rebranded recently, went from previous last name to now current last name.
I know. I actually just realized I still have my old last name on my camera, but it's Flores.
Karla Flores.
Come on, everybody, get it right.
This is really, I'm excited about this because it's a marketing conversation, and so it's like it's fun because there's so many ways, and I feel like everybody here could have a different definition of marketing. And Johnny, maybe right after this, you can bring about what you were talking about right before the call. But this image right here, not right now, babe, I'm cultivating whimsy, is so funny to me because, and even the image right before, I think these two images define Karla's approach to marketing and art. We've known each other for quite a few. What year was it, Karla? Was it 2019?
No, I think it was 2020.
2020.
Yeah.
I believe you met Johnny first, and then we got to meet shortly after. But Karla, Johnny, and I have worked together on several projects. We were all together, I think, at a room. We were in-house together, and then we worked on Neww together. Karla now is freelancing and working with several worship leaders and working on several projects at the same time, which is what one of the biggest reasons I wanted to have her come on was because I think the sort of what she's picked up throughout the years of working, within the church and working with worship leaders and working on different kinds of projects, from like merch to album releases to church campaigns to just regular church strategy. I think there's so much there, but excited for Karla to talk. The way we want to start this one, Johnny had like a quick marketing thought here with that. Johnny, I don't know how you want to position this, but
yeah,
I know it was a thought right before the call that I think is super interesting, and I think you and Karla can actually like rip really well, and all of us too. But go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, I mean, I think marketing, as it relates to even like within the creative world, like people can have a marketing conversation or a conference or whatever that do like paid media or email marketing or like billboards. Like there's a ton obviously to do within like marketing. I think when we specifically think about marketing, it really is through a creative lens, and like I know that Karla kind of will speak into that. But the thought, like, thinking about this week as we were getting ready for this call, is that I think most marketers, like most people, like are communicating marketing to one person. That's how I do it, and I think like the more I've thought about it, like even as you're posting or like sharing something for a project or for yourself, like I think a lot of times you have someone in the back of your mind that you want to like fulfill or you want to have sign off on the thing that you're doing. And I think that the sooner and the quicker like you understand who that person is, the clearer your message gets. And I think a step further from that, I think like a lot of times the demographic of whether it's the church that you're working for or the project you're working for, like if those two aren't aligned, I think it's really important to align those and say like, hey, I'm actually talking to this person, you want to talk to this person, my campaign is for this person, not for that person, or whatever it may be. And I think there's opportunity, obviously, to like blend those, or you just have to kind of get unstubborn about like who you're communicating to. But I think it's really important. Like I thought about the last several years. I'm like, there's always someone in the back of my mind. Like it could be I don't know, an ex job or an ex boss or an ex project, or like it could actually be your best friend or whatever. But I think it's just really important to think about that. Like every time like you're pushing something, like who are you trying, like sure, 1,000 likes or 10,000 likes is cool, but like if this one person doesn't like sign off on it, then it's not successful. And anyway, that's the idea. I'm gonna hand it off to Karla so she can kind of speak into that and then go through the slides and the entire presentation.
Thanks, Johnny. Okay, hello everyone. I'm Karla. I've been working with Johnny and Joe for a really long time. This is kind of a random fact, but at the time when Johnny found me, really discovered me, I was running our youth's Instagram for free, like just for funsies at Upper Room.
I remember that. That's true.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what the connection point was. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, it was just like I was just a student at USM, and I was randomly volunteering at youth and running the Instagram. And Johnny, I don't know what he thought about it. I think he thought it was good, which is why he brought me on the team. But at the time I was like, all right, like if you think this is cool, this is cool. And that's like ever kind of since when we started working together. But I think the question of like who you're marketing to, yeah, it's been a while. The question of who you're marketing to is so important. And I always think about that when working specifically with artists and even working with churches. So my background mostly at the beginning was like working with a church that also did music. So it was always finding like the balance between that. And it was like, how the greatest always start with yes, it's true. And it was like, how are we communicating like events and like all this other stuff on Instagram or like social media? There's like so many other things, like so many other like avenues of marketing. It's not just social media. And I think that sometimes churches tend to be like, there's an Instagram, post the graphic about my women's conference, post the graphic about my women's group on Tuesday, blah, 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 blah. If the mission of the church is like, and the pastor signs it off and he's like, yes, this is like a bulletin board where we're going to announce all the things. I personally don't think that's what Instagram is for. I think Instagram is like a form of expression. And I think emails or like those like texts that you randomly get is really like where you should announce things, or even like maybe from the platform. But also I feel announcements I feel like are a whole other topic.
Anuncios.
But yeah, los anuncios.
good.
Even that's part of marketing. And like I struggle with interrupting what the Lord is doing in a room to talk about announcements, and they are important. And I remember when we were all at Upper Room together trying to figure out, like, these are conversations we would have. Like, where should the announcements go in the service where it feels the less, like, distracting and all that stuff. And I don't think there's, like, necessarily a right question, like, a right answer for it. And it all really, like...
So good.
Just depends on the place and like the target. I think we were the first time I hopped on the first call of these, and I remember like Joe mentioning like something about creative and like what adds to a place, like what doesn't take away from a place. And I feel like I take the same approach in marketing, like what's going to add to my client, what's going to add to the vision of the church, instead of like take away or distract from it. So yeah, that's definitely like a big thing of like who you're marketing to. If there's a women's group and it's like older women at your church, they're most likely not going to be on Instagram. They're going to be on Facebook. So maybe you just post on Facebook. You know what I mean? Like just thinking about that side of things like that.
It still
like,
exists.
Absolutely.
I know.
Thinking about that side of things is like, I think, really important for marketing specifically. Now, when it comes to music marketing, which is kind of the world I've been in right now, what's the next slide? Can I see it just to know if I'm going into the next thing?
Your three approaches to the
Which makes sense why you're in music marketing, Karla. I mean, a little bit also background so people know, like, you are a songwriter, like you've been a musician yourself, like even prior to like coming on and working in the marketing world. Like I remember at the beginning, one of the reasons potentially like you weren't gonna do it is because you have written songs, like you're a worship leader yourself. So one, I think like having that background is important, but also like it makes sense why like you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. No, and it's like music is a topic that I'm very passionate about. My my husband and I, we met doing a Spanish prayer set at Upper Room, and music is such a big part of his life, like producing and like mixing audio, etc. And it's always just been like I'm the girl that makes hella playlists on Spotify. You know what I mean?
for
Like
sure.
Yeah, share one.
Yeah,
I
sure. I was about to say.
I love my playlist. Please follow me on Spotify, Karla Daniela. But it's just
Actually,
like it's just something that makes me come alive, and I feel very, very passionate about music and about
yeah.
protecting artists really and protecting their creativity because it is their songs. It's like it's their voice. It's whatever the Lord is trying to communicate through them. And for me as a creative to come and be like, this is how you need to market yourself, that's hard.
Mm.
Like I feel like that's not the way that it should be, and I think, and I've experienced a lot of labels, lol, a lot of labels, like being that way, where they're like, you need to market yourself this way, and kind of put an umbrella or like a copy and paste of like each of these artists, etc. And that leads me to my first point. I don't think there's necessarily a formula, which I think is kind of like anticlimactic. Is that the word?
Yeah.
But I don't think there's necessarily a formula. I think the first thing that you need to ask yourself when you're marketing something is asking the question of like, what do you want to be on socials? If it's a church, like, what do we want to be on socials? What do we want to like represent? What's like the thing we're trying to talk about, the point that we're trying to make? And that's something that I always have asked my artists, like, what do you want to be? And I think from there, then we start dreaming up things. There's always like a creative identity already, like with some of the projects that I'm working on right now. I'm not the creative director on the project, so there's already a creative identity. But something that I'm really passionate about is like creating worlds for each of the songs that these people are like releasing, if that makes sense. And social media just gets really tiring when things just look the same and stagnant. And I really think that, like, yes, we can post a worship clip over and over again, but is that creative? Like, you know what I mean? I don't know that it is.
One of the things you said was like social media is for expression or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that? Right? It's not just like you're almost seeing it like it's a human on its own, kind of is like what you're saying, or like what do you?
Yeah, I think like it's just like expression and identity of like a place or a person, if that makes sense. Like, so I guess, yeah, maybe it's like it's just its own thing. If that it's like usually when people are gonna visit a place, the first thing that they do is, maybe if you're going to a restaurant, you're gonna go on Google, right? And you're gonna see like Google Maps, and you're gonna see the stars and like the ratings and the whatever, like the pictures,
Yeah,
etc.
super good.
I think the first thing that people do nowadays for a church or for an artist is go to their Instagram and like, oh, what's their vibe? You know what I mean? And are you actually like, if you're just posting announcements, are you actually like giving them the vibe, like of who you are and what you represent? If it just says women's group, blah 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 blah, like, or if you just say like pre-save, like if the thing is just pre-save, or if the thing is just like I don't know, Out Now, etc. Like, is that really representing the artist, if that makes sense? Is that really telling the artist's story or the church's story? And I think that's like that's kind of what I mean by it's like
It's an
its own,
expression.
it's an expression, yeah.
It has to be living, right? It has to have
Mhm.
a heartbeat and not just like here. It's not a bulletin board.
Yeah, it's definitely not a bulletin board. And I think there's avenues for a bulletin board. Like, once people are bought into the mission of the thing that you're doing, like, they're going to subscribe to the email thing. And like, I'm subscribed to Olivia Rodrigo's emails, and I'm like waiting for her to send me something about her new project. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I'm invested. And I think once people are invested, I think that's when you can start telling them about the women's group and all this
Yeah,
stuff.
that's super good.
But I
So
think
you prioritize like you prioritize layers, or like you have a hierarchy essentially for like what goes on socials and
Mhm.
like what goes versus like what goes on emails, and it's not all the same is like
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
When you're saying like you're joining say like an album release or a single release or whatever, and you're like, hey, there is no formula, but at the same time like you are also, meaning there's not a copy and paste formula, which I understand from you. Like, how do you like back up in creating the asset and being like, no, let's like think about the world that it's living in. Like, what does that look like for you?
It looks like me sitting at my computer and listening to the songs over and over again. And I guess this is so cheesy, but I'm such a big feeler. And I'm such a big feeler. And I think that I just kind of feel the music and like see, like, just start seeing things. And like, when I hear a song, I'm like, do I feel like I'm in the grass and in the greenery in the forest, blah, 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 blah. And I feel like that starts leading me to like a creative expression. And that definitely like won't be the final of like of
Yeah, the
creative,
project.
if that makes sense. Yeah. Like, that's definitely just something that it's like a starting point where I'm gonna tell the artist, this is what I was feeling when I was listening to your songs for the first time.
Yeah.
What do you think? And sometimes it's like spot on, and sometimes it's like, no, hard to miss, hard to miss. But
But
honestly,
you
like,
start there most of the time. Like
yeah,
that's your process there.
that's my process.
It's super good.
I'm not gonna go to a calendar immediately. Like, I use Notion to like keep track of social media stuff. I'm not gonna go to a calendar immediately and be like, I need these many out and out graphics. I need these many reels, blah, 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 blah. No, I'm gonna go first and like actually listen to the music and sit with it and feel it and
Super good.
make sure that I'm getting these people's point across, if that makes sense.
When do
Yeah,
you
that's great.
when do you arrive to like you feeling like, okay, this is actually this is like the goal?
That's so good question. I don't know that. I think it's like a constant exploration, because also when you work with artists that need to like make numbers for a label or whatever, like, there is like the number aspect of things. So I think it's like an ever changing like thing that you're doing. Does that make sense? Like, social media is constantly evolving. Therefore, like, we need to evolve like with it in a way, but not like in it. Like, does that make sense? Like, I don't need to do what everyone else is doing, but I do need to be a step ahead of what everyone else is doing.
Well, I think like you explaining that part of your process, it's funny. Like, I do think that like when I look at both of you, Joe and Karla, for instance, as I would consider you guys creative directors and marketers, right, and designers in your own different way. Like, there's a clear different identity between both of you, like creatively. And I think like you just explaining that, Karla's moment, you Karla explaining that part of your process explains to me why the things that you do look the way they do. Like, I know that's simple, but like it comes from that place internally for you. And I think a lot of the things that you work on have like a thread, like a through line, similar to last week when like Jacob was saying, I'm like, oh, here's kind of why your stuff looks the way that it does. And I think he explained like some of his like 15-year-old inspiration point, right?
Good.
And I think what's always so interesting to me is that like you found that, Karla, like you immediately went to, like you said right now, like a garden or grass or whatever. Like when I think about you, I think about these like colors and this like specific, like you tend to like write on things that you write on, like you put like and you write on it and there's this vibe to it. But I've also seen you like
I
evolve
also
from that. Yeah,
like
like
I'm a big
exactly that.
writer.
That makes me think about that. But you've evolved from that. Like it hasn't stayed in like the place that you were doing 2022. Like there's a maturity and like I don't know, like it's evolved, and that's really interesting to me. And I also have to credit you for being able to do that. Like it doesn't feel 2022 anymore. Like you've actually like blended that like personal come from to like what it looks like today, and you're able to like do that really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I'm also like generally a really curious person. I think the reason why I've evolved is because I'm generally really curious. I really enjoy looking at stuff that isn't mine or that isn't anyone else's like churches. I'm like really inspired by artists like Lizzie McAlpine or like Olivia Rodrigo, etc. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm not gonna copy and paste what they're doing, but I really love what they're doing, and I think it's more so
Yeah.
like I love to be inspired. I think that's like
Oh, good.
I'm a very passionate person, and I love to be inspired, and I love to go to a museum. I love
Super
Asian
good.
culture. I love to go to Asia and
Yeah.
like sit
Right.
there.
And you live in New York now, which is like it's
and I
awesome
live in New
for
York,
you.
so I'm at my peak, guys. Like,
Well, I think this is good, right? This what you're
yeah,
saying here, and kind of like what you're saying, Johnny, from the very first slide of like defining that starting point of a project that you're working on. And obviously, right now we're talking about marketing, but like you're able to define, like you essentially, right in the last like 5 minutes have defined like inspiration being like that starting point for any of your projects, right? Where it's like, oh, I'm
yeah,
inspired by this, so therefore I'm going to make. And I think that sort of like when I read there's no formula, that it does feel like it's not a formula, because the formula isn't like what inspired you. Like buildings and like how the buildings in Korea are or in Japan are will inspire maybe like the visuals of another project, or Lizzie McAlpine's album where it feels like you're barefoot running in the grass and the lilies can also, then that becomes the formula. But I think one thing to like think about for everyone here is like how like the inspiration kind of almost brings this like adaptability, right? Like you're pretty adaptable and like are able to work with, and we can like kind of like maybe go to the next slide. I don't know if we can touch a little bit here. We kind of already talked about it, but like
yeah,
how you're able to like kind of do different, like you've worked with like an Abby, then you work with like an Aiden, right? And then together, but then also with Jen, right? Like, and then you've done churches, you've done Upper Room. How you're able to like do both. What would be interesting is like, how do you kind of differentiate these both? Is your differentiator?
yeah. I think when coming onto someone's team, you have to be like, I think like a servant at heart, which sounds kind of lame, but you do. Like you have to like you have to get onto the mission of the thing that you're trying to do, if that makes sense. If it's like working with the church or working with artists, there is a line where you like start pushing, to have breakthrough or creativity or etc. But I think that's I hate talking about myself like this, but I think that's one of the things that I'm really good at. And I'm like, I don't know if you're into the Enneagram, anyone, but I'm an Enneagram
Speak on
2.
that.
Like, I'm an
You're in
Enneagram
too.
2. I'm a Latina that has immigrant parents. I'm an immigrant myself. Like, I'm just gonna work really hard to like make this thing come to life. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not always a creative director. Like in a lot of these projects that I'm working right now, I'm not necessarily a creative director. So it's like, how can I like do their thing that they're trying to do, but also like push it even further when it comes to like marketing and like extend it, Because there's always a starting point. But I think like our job as like creatives and marketers and artists is like to push it beyond that. And I think I think that's always like a good way to see it. Like what the creative director says is like even like a starting point really there, you know? And I think that's how I've been able to differentiate both, you know?
Super
Yeah.
good.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like what artists are trying to do and what churches are trying to do are really different. And I don't think a church Instagram should look like an artist Instagram. Like the church Instagram should very much be like talking about the mission of the church. If it's worship, it's worship. If it's like the preaching, it's the preaching. If it's to go to the ends of the earth, it's to go to the ends of the earth. You know what I mean? Like missions is what I mean by that. But yeah, that's like kind of the vibe with that. We can go on to the
Yeah, so good. That was really good.
I had
I like
a quick question, Karla. Like thinking about like process, we've talked about, you know, starting off and understanding like, you know, whether it's the artist or the church or like what like the goal is, the end goal that you're trying to get to, and then kind of build this strategy. And then Joe, you mentioned adaptability in terms of like working with artists, but I'm curious about like adaptability. You know, you start with like, okay, here's the plan, here's what we're gonna do. And like along the way, you know, some things miss, some things hit. How do you know when it's time to re-strategize and like change directions when you're in the middle of like a campaign?
genuinely like when you're no longer feeling excited about it. Like if you're not happy about what you're posting and it feels like like you know, just you're dragging your feet, I think that's when you're like should re-strategize in a way.
Mhm.
If numbers are important to whoever you are working with, I think that's a really good way to see it too. Like if the numbers aren't doing well, then like probably time to rethink some of the things that we're doing.
Yeah.
But if it's just like I think a lot of the times we would constantly have check-ins. I remember when we would all work together, like we would constantly have check-ins and kind of just check our hearts and check where we all were and if we were telling the right message and then why we were telling the right message. And if there was something like unaligned there, disaligned, unaligned, I think that's when we would be like, yeah, we would move on to the next thing or like re-strategize, etc. But yeah.
I mean, I think Karla and I we've been working together for a while now, and one of the things that I think we both have like a good filter for, and maybe to answer your question, Blake, of like repivoting or like constantly evolving, is the word that comes to mind is like provocation. Like how can we constantly like shake up public opinion or change culture, right? Like that is like those are things that we're like constantly, at least myself is like asking like,
yeah,
how can we like, if it's church culture, right? We know church culture. We're in church culture. We grew up in church culture. How do we shake it up at least? Because we know right now everyone is on Instagram. That's like the reality, right? And maybe my mom's on Facebook, but my mom just joined Instagram. So just like at the end of the day, like it is Instagram, and it's like church culture. Like from a marketing standpoint, it's like how do we shake it up? Like I'm sure Karla, I haven't worked with you on a worship leader project, but I'm sure you're either subconsciously asking yourself that of like, there's how many worship leaders are dropping albums, right? I think we were just talking about it on the call before this. It's like every church wants to drop a worship album, which is, it's another conversation for another time. But it's like, if my church is, and how am I changing it up? And I think that's like kind of what you're saying, Karla, of like,
yeah, like how is it uniquely yours?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And is the Lord on it?
Yes.
Like I think that's like such a big thing. And also like just so you know, like Joe and we always have these conversations, and there always has to be like a mediator that like brings us back to like not reality, but you know, like, and that's usually Blake when it comes to like certain things that we work on.
Because what we're talking about right now is pretty like it's sort of it's very abstract, right? And Blake probably has like better language for this, but it's very like there's nothing tactile about it other than like scratching like a creative itch of like something needs to change, right?
Yeah.
The reality is like you can't just it's like right, like it's like you can't just stand outside and with a sign and just like protesting. Like that works, but there has to be actual change. And I think some of the changes is, you know, kind of partnering with people that are like, okay, well then what does the actual next post look like? And it's like, well, it's a graphic or it's a video or it's an interview or etc. But I mean, that leads us to this next slide. I think is like a good example of it, right? Here is like one of your projects, Karla, with Abby for the There Goes That Man single. You want to talk about this a bit?
Yeah. So I get to work with this artist. Love her forever. Her name's Abby. And she just recently released a song called There Goes That Man. There was so much anticipation like for this song from her listeners, which was really exciting. And like our team that works with her, we just decided to really lean into that and kind of make it about that and make it about like people just super people like super hyped about this one thing. And it's like, how can we like stretch UGC to the best of our abilities? We made maybe like 3 things. Does that make sense? All of the rest of the things that we were like
So
posting
good.
and all that was literally just UGC because of the anticipation that was built to the song. Abby's also just like a rare specimen to work with. Like every time I work with her, and like her following is insane, like her stats are insane, and it makes me feel like I'm so sick at my job. Like, yeah, you know? And then sometimes you work with other people and it's not always the same. But this one was like really special to us because it was like a song that people were anticipating for a long time. The UGC was like there and was present, and we really just leaned into that. Like, and I think the point here is like let the project take like a mind of its own and kind of just like grab onto that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We didn't try to like create this whole thing. Like it was its own like living thing already.
Was that
And
a
we just
decision, or was there like a pool of like, but we got to make our own assets, or we like
No, I think it was a pretty easy decision. So yeah, like that one was very obvious immediately when we went on TikTok. There's another collaborator that I work with for abs. It's Silas, and Silas and I are always like talking about like abs and like her social media and her following and all that stuff. And this one was like an easy, like we just have to go into this. It's so good. So yeah, and UGC is user generated content, which I think a lot of brands are doing that nowadays. Like influencers are like UGCs. People,
yeah,
really like that's kind of like what
real, right? Like,
yeah.
Of like cool creativity. It's just like this actually kind of what you said. This like the product speaks for itself.
Yeah, the product speaks for itself, which is really cool and rare. And I think there's a lot of, if you work with brands or anything, a lot of brands are really needing to lean into that because it feels the most authentic, in our opinion. So, in my opinion.
Karla, but I think you did a great job with this. You still built a world around it. And so like you took UGC, but I think like like UGC was definitely maybe like the gasoline, but like there's still like an identity. There's like a world, right? Like I see even the YouTube video. How did that come about?
It came about because of leaning into who Abby is as an artist. So it's kind of going back to that idea of like asking the artist, who do you want to be like on social media? Like, what's your vibe? And her vibe is, I'm just me, and I have kids, and I have a family, and I sing songs. And I think we just always lean into that for her stuff.
Super good.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
So good, Carlos. I mean, here's the next one. This slide is kind of my favorite because of how like generic this is. But talk to us about it.
Yes. So this is also another Abby project, but she collaborated with Aiden King. Mr. King. And this one was probably one of my favorite projects I've ever worked on. They made a project. They like wrote songs and recorded them in a week, which was insane. And it felt like I was in a reality TV show because we were in the studio from like morning to evening. But even with this one, I think we really let it take an identity of its own. We all just kind of went into the room and we just told the story about what was actually happening there. And there was so many like different personalities in that room that it really, like, we just highlighted that, and we highlighted like the people there. And I think this is where I go with like, there's no like formula really. And this is something I learned from like Johnny and Joe when like capturing. I remember when we were capturing stuff for Up Room, they'd be like, just like tell the story of what's in the room, which I think there's like a post about that on Symphony, which you should go check out. But like just capturing what's in the room and what's happening. Like what does Temmie want to know while she is flying to her next destination, because Temmie is a flight attendant, you know what I mean? Like what do people want to know of what's happening in the room? And I think that was the approach there. And we also needed to like email capture and like do all these other things, which is why we had the website, like the Abby and Aiden are making an album.com. That one the creative director came up with, Mr. Diego Boyles. He's insane. And we all just captured that week, and we posted what felt true to what was happening in the room, essentially. So that one was awesome.
Super good. Here we have a couple minutes left. Maybe talk a little bit about, here's like, maybe this is just showing you guys. We almost showed the whole thing, but this is just kind of like a little preview about what Karla is working on next and some projects. I'm really excited about it. Carl's, before even like you go into like this, and I think the last slide after this is also my favorite. We could keep talking about this, but I had a question for you, and something we talked about with Johnny is like, have you ever had a marketing project that kind of like failed or like did not do as well, or or like a challenge, or like a challenge that you faced that was a really like hard or heavy challenge?
That's a good question. I guess like a heavy challenge. This is funny because it's not music related, but it's like more church related. But having to, like, I used to work at this church in Texas, and not Upper Room, and it was really hard to like change the ministry's mind about what Instagram was and all that stuff. And I feel like there was like some breakthrough before I stopped working there, but there wasn't like a ton of breakthrough when it came to explaining like my thoughts as a creative director of what social media should be and how we should market to different ministries, etc. And I think that one was probably like the toughest project I've been a part of, just because I am not the best at I'm, again, very passionate human being. I'm not the best at articulating things sometimes to like other ministries or leaders, because sometimes I used to, and this is like a learning curve, I used to think my opinion was the most important opinion in the room. And that wasn't a way to approach things at all, like at all. And I think that taught me humility, and that taught me to come in low, and again to like serve the purpose. And even if my idea was the best one, whatever, like it doesn't matter, like I'm serving this thing. Does that make sense? And I always want to like come in low to things, and I would never approach it that way anymore. Like I don't want to come in thinking I'm the best one in the room. Does that make sense? And I don't know. And I think that's why it failed, just because of communication. Like communication and communicating my ideas was just really difficult to me. And I'm still learning how to do that. Like as my husband and I, we started like our own company, and we like maybe eventually we need to grow. And I'm like, how do I explain like what I do? How do I put words to it? And that's something that I'm learning currently. So
that's great.
Yeah.
I want to hear about this photo set.
Yeah, so right now I'm in the middle of working on Jen Johnson's project. Jen Johnson is a queen. Like, I'm pretty sure everyone knows Jen Johnson. If you don't, look her up. But she's currently working on her first solo project, and I've had the opportunity to come on as her social media manager and kind of help with like some marketing and consulting and capturing and just a little bit of everything on this one, which has been really fun for me because I don't want to say I get bored easily, but I love working. I love doing different things. And this one's really fun. So she has a couple features, Abby, Tiff. If you go to her socials, I think you can see the other features too. But yeah, that's currently what I'm doing. Her project comes out in May, and we're just trying our best. Her project is called Happy, and it is like she likes to say it's a mosaic of songs of her life, which it really is. There's like all types of music, which has been really cool to see from Jen as like a worship leader, as we all know her. And yeah, I'm really excited for everyone to get to keep
Awesome.
seeing how this project grows and listen to it.
And this is how Karla ends her presentation here. The
This is
ghost photo.
This is a
Never
picture.
seen this photo.
My friend Boaz, for context, my friend Boaz gave me this vinyl one day. Like, he just brought it to church and gave it to me, and I just took a picture of Johnny holding it. I think Johnny at one point was like singing the songs and dancing and pumping his fist up, but I didn't show that. But my North Star, which is really silly, but at heart, I'm a sad girl. And I love sad girl songs, which is so silly, but it's true. And I love Olivia Rodrigo. And if you've been following like her current thing that she's doing right now for her new potentially love album, like, it's incredible and it's beautiful. And I would love to do something like that. Like, that's like my North Star. Like, I want to have people invested on a wall in Hollywood that keeps changing colors every single day, if that makes sense. You know?
So good.
So yeah,
It's really good.
that's me.
Karla, guys. I mean, Karla, thank you for sharing. I think
Yeah.
great. It was so good to hear like your process and sort of the everything that what you've worked on, what you are working on now. Super helpful. Super helpful. I mean, we're going to move on to like questions and answers. And so I saw one here. Johnny, do you have any other thoughts right before going to Q&A?
We should do Q&A. Yeah, I will have a question, but I think let's go through Q&A. And if there's not any here, then like I can ask. But
there was one earlier by
Okay.
Caitlin. She said, can you elaborate on be soft but severe? What does that look like practically, and how do we do that well?
Oh, that was on one of the images I sent.
Yeah.
Be soft and severe is my mantra. What is it? My mantra?
This meme right here, right?
Yeah. I like deeply, when I found that, I deeply related to it because I think it's like the mixture of like being tender but passionate. You know, like staying really tender to what you are doing and what the Lord is doing in your life. Like, I really love God. I really, really love God. And I always want to stay tender to what the Lord is doing. But I also want to really be like passionate and move the mark and like change people's lives through what God wants to do through me. So I think that's my like, be tender but passionate. That's like another way to say it.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. Be soft but severe.
Mm-hmm.
Q&A. That's good. I think there was another one here. Jay, what was your question?
well, I think in terms of marketing, like a lot of what I hear from you, Karla, is your marketing starts at creative direction. Like you build worlds, and I think like that to me is a creative director at heart. You know, I think like your best projects are potentially like the ones that you are creative directing. And so I think my question in that is like how, and I know you spoke into this, but like how have you learned to like step into a role where maybe you're not like necessarily the creative director? It's not necessarily about position, but like do that thing that you do and just like purely, I guess, market.
Yeah.
And has that been a challenge, or is this like where this like being soft and severe has come in and helped?
I don't think it's been a challenge. Honestly, I've worked with really incredible creative directors that are very collaborative. So it's not always a challenge. Sometimes it's a challenge to like bite my tongue, when I don't like something, and
Oh, it is.
I'm not gonna come into a project that I'm brought on necessarily and be like, oh, this is ugly,
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm not gonna like not collaborate, if that makes sense. So it's like this idea exists and it's beautiful and it's a world that
Mm.
they've already started. So it's like, how can I almost like make, like, it's a house, how can I make little rooms in the
And you
house?
really are, like, I know you're telling me this right now, like you really are like in team settings, like you're that collaborative about something that's not your idea as a marketer.
Yeah. Yeah. I love collaboration. And I think it can literally be as simple as this. Like every and the thing is, like, there's an overarching creative direction, but I think social media specifically is very interesting because you don't want it to look the same all the time. Like you don't want to use like the same font necessarily. Like there can be like a branded element in each thing that you're doing, which can be a logo or whatever, like a arc or whatever, but it doesn't mean that the graphics always have to be the same, Like it doesn't mean like there's like Jen's first song that she released is called Walk With Me, and there's like an overarching like creative direction over her thing, but how can we represent Walk With Me as a song, and then there's like another single coming
Yeah.
out soon, and we're building a world around that right now, and the graphics look different because we're telling a different story with this song. Like it just really, and you know what, and the cool thing is there's some creative directors that are really going to be okay with that, which has been my case, just by like communicating that like we can create different worlds, and social media is like evolving and we can't keep posting the same thing because I'm just going to scroll past when I keep seeing like the same people or the same font or whatever because I think I already consumed it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Super
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
That's great.
There's a couple
Um,
here.
Go ahead, and Blake, you want to ask one of the questions here?
Yeah. One that I saw, how do you relate the message to your leaders slash pastors that social is more than just announcements? It's a way to express God's giving, what God has given you, your gifts, and keeping in mind the heart of the church.
I feel like Johnny should answer this one. Johnny, you're really good at this.
Oof. How do you communicate to your leaders and pastors? Yeah, actually, I think if you kind of step back a little bit, and you guys can all speak into this, this is how I would approach that, is that like, I think you come to terms with like what winning looks like for your pastor on social media. Like, I think first you align on that and you say, hey, like,
It's really good.
what is more important to you? Is it that this bulletin board gets posted on Instagram because you want that? Or do you want me to help this Instagram account grow? And do you want more people to come to church because of the Instagram? And if the answer is like, I really want this bulletin board post on Instagram, that's what I want, the conversation ends there. And I do that. And like I again, in the context of like honoring and serving, like I would say that that's what we do. But more times than not, like I think the leadership would say, yeah, I actually don't know what I'm doing with Instagram. That's why you're here. And I rather the latter. And if the latter, then you just go and say like, hey, like, here's what Instagram is for. Like the bulletin board doesn't really serve the Instagram profile, the algorithm, whatever. You just kind of go down. I think a lot of times it's education, and you just kind of go and you explain like part of what Karla shared. It's like, this is what Instagram is for. We're going to do a lot of stories. We're going to post. We don't want graphics, whatever. And that's how I would approach it. Is like kind of in conversation like that. Again, it could be challenging. The part B of that would be if they agree to the latter and you start doing that, and then a week later you get an email and they're like, why isn't the bulletin board up? Right? You have to kind of come back to that conversation. Something that like we've always wanted to establish are wins, and like having, whether it's a dashboard or some sort of like continual like win cycle. Like, hey, like look at the growth, or look at the people that are coming to church because of the account. Like continuing to like have that. A lot of times, like leaders and artists and people, like they want to win more than they want to be right. And if you can understand what the win is, I think more times than not, people will agree to that than being right. So
So good.
yeah.
So good. This question, kind of like in your way you're talking about, Caitlin, hypothetically, there's little to no clear creative direction / marketing strategy for a church. How do you keep outworking socials and creative projects without that? Good question. Karla.
Oh, there was a time when I worked at a church and the creative director had moved to California. And there was no creative director, but obviously like we still needed to pump out content. So I think it's like a question of asking like yourself as a content creator or as a marketer, like how am I, it's kind of same with what Johnny was saying, like how am I telling the story, how am I like pushing what's happening here. And I think creative direction from there kind of takes like a mind of its own as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. They're probably like an album totally makes sense that like there has to be a clear creative direction. I
Yeah.
think for churches in general, like it's so evolving. I think the beauty of a church, guys, like is that it is a body, right? It is an evolving organization that has a lot of people, or a little bit, but it has families and youth and kids and moms and dads and grandparents and worship and preaching. It's really hard, and I think maybe not worth like going to the point where like here's the exact guideline and brand book for the church. Like I think it doesn't work, right? I do think that there could be like a section of the church that could be like creative directed, and you take that and run. Like I think Joe did that with Upper Room, for instance, and like said, you know what, like Miller's Message has a creative direction to it, and like worship has a creative direction to it. But at large, like, and then I think Karla did that with the local church in Dallas, like really well. But at large, like, I don't think it really needs one. Necessarily. It will take shape though after you start posting a bunch, which is funny. Yeah. I think go on to the next, and then I think we should wrap up, Blake.
Yeah, I think this is a good question. Andrew's question here, I'll kind of paraphrase it a little bit, is basically like relying on an algorithm / going viral versus putting money into ads. How you kind of make a decision to, use paid media versus just trying to like hit the algorithm, hit the explore page, based on the project, and how you kind of think about each of those approaches.
This is funny, but I don't believe in ads. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If it's good, it's good. If whoever needs to hear it hears it. That's what I think for like specifically church and artist. Brands, I feel like that's different. I don't know, Joe, would you want to speak into that? I've never really worked with brands, so I don't know. But when it comes to like specifically artists and churches, like why are we putting money into it?
Yeah.
You know?
You're talking about ads, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I had this come up last week. Like 2 people asked me about ads. It was funny. Like, there's one organization that has pumped a bunch of money into ads, and they have no like brand or like presence. It's like they've just kind of wasted money. But like people have come through the ad. Like people have come to the church because of the ad. They're like, oh, like I saw this sponsored ad and like I came to the church because of it. But they don't really have like growth necessarily. There's like no consistency. I don't disagree. Like I don't like, it doesn't cross my mind initially ever. Like it's not something that we're like, yep, part of this like rollout is going to be spending $10,000 on paid ads, but I do think that there's a place for it at some point. Like there could be a place for it at some point. But I think that those points would be like way down the road. Like I'm trying to think like within the church context, like I will say this, like a conference that has, you know, has 5,000 people that are coming to a conference, I can see an ad being really beneficial
Yeah, that's
because like
different.
say
Yeah.
that it's like they're having, you know, not just they have to sell tickets, even the tickets are free. Like you want to have a lot of people come to this event and be blessed by it, and you want to get outside of your normal reach because it's just a one-time thing. But if you're spending money on ads like on the normal basis, I think that's challenging because one of the things within the algorithm specifically, like if you're starting to spend money on ads, it's going to like not just rely on it, but like you will start getting people that are not used to like start getting your content, and it's like really hard to get the right creative in that ad. We can kind of go on and on this. I think it's like multi-layered. um I would be happy to talk about this as well though. Like I'd be happy to like figure out like what this like looks like for people. I also have seen YouTube work for ads, or sorry, ads work for YouTube. I've seen that be really helpful because I think if you put money on YouTube, but again, that's also for like a really specific thing. Blanket statement though, I would say ads do not work if your creative doesn't work. Like if you don't have good
That's a good
creative,
that's a good way to put it.
then it doesn't matter if you spend 5 grand, 10 grand, 20 grand. It's not going to work. It doesn't matter because all ads do is kind of put a megaphone to your content. So that's like more general. I would actually first focus on the creative in the content. So yep.
Cool.
Super good. Super
Okay.
good.
Awesome.
I think
Well,
we're done.
yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of wraps up our
I'm hungry.
conversation for today. Thanks, you guys, all for being on. Thank you, Karla.
You're
Yeah, thank you, Karla.
welcome.
Wisdom. We love you and appreciate you.
Love you.
And
Thank you.
don't forget to join the Telegram. I've dropped it in the link, and I'll send it after as well. But appreciate you all being on.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye guys.